If you suck at acrylic nails, this is a series for you because we're going to learn together. Today, I'm building one of the most classic and simple acrylic nails, a medium length square. I'm focusing on structure, smoothness, and clarity. And worst of all, I am not using a colored acrylic powder. I'm using clear, which means if it's overworked, you will be able to tell. So let's get started. The last time I did acrylic nails, I really struggled with keeping the bead wet to the point where I didn't even end up posting that video because it was so full of fails. Clumpy beads, ruined brushes, and way too much filing. Later, I decided to give it another try. I'm using a really high quality acrylic powder, which means if this ends up being a flop, it's not the product, it's me. So I started by dipping my brush in the powder and picking up a pretty large bead and smoothing it out over the bottom half of my nail. I'm just trying to build some thickness and some structure. I really didn't want the bead to dry out again, so what I did is I kept dipping my brush into the monomer and just smoothing out. Then I added a medium-sized bead in the middle of my nail to try and build thickness around the apex. I kept this away from my cuticle for now, and I tried to keep the thickness even with the rest of the nail. Then I added a cuticle bead, smoothed it out, and did my best at this stage to avoid getting the monomer onto my nails. You can see I definitely failed at this. There was so much monomer on my hands, and I don't know how nail techs do it. Like, how do they just not get any product on the side of your nails? It takes so much control. I really was trying to smooth this out, but as you can see, it dried. I think I was working a little bit too slowly. So I kind of just had to settle for this shape, but I do like that the structure is there. I just think maybe I should have worked a little bit faster. For my index finger, I did take a really large bead this time, and I tried starting from the cuticle. I think this wasn't a good idea, and the reason is with acrylic you have to work super fast, and as I was trying to smooth out the acrylic next to my cuticles, you can see that the product in the middle started to dry a little bit, so I had to use so much liquid just to kind of smooth it out and ended up flooding my cuticles again. If you're a nail tech and you're watching this and just like rolling in your grave, I'm very sorry. If you have tips for me, just put them in the comments. This is the first video in the series, and I'm hoping that over time this can be a way for me to document my progress with acrylics. Throughout this process, I'm looking at the nails a lot, and I think this is one of the reasons why I was a bit slow, is because the process of just looking at the nail and trying to find out where it was missing product or where it had too much product was taking me too long to make that decision. I wasn't able to spot it immediately. So I think over time, this is one of the things that will improve. I built out the basic nail structure for all 5 nails, and then I started filing. I probably cut out about, I would say like 20-30 minutes of footage of just me filing these nails. It took so long, and there was some places where I overfiled them, other places where I didn't file enough. This is definitely just a result of the initial poor placement of the acrylic. This is something that you, as someone who does nails, should be self-aware of, which is what are your personal tendencies when it comes to how you build out nails. So for me, for example, I always end up with too much product on the side of the nail that I can't see, or the side of the nail that faces away from me. And that's why you see me like tipping my finger forward, looking at it straight on, and filing the left side, because this is the side of the nail that always ends up with way too much product. I also know that I tend to have a little dip between the middle of the nail and the edge, and so it makes it really hard to get the smooth top. So that's another thing that I was focusing on when filing, is just looking at the nail sideways and making sure that the line that I can see is just smooth. I also decided to use my e-file to clean up the underside of the nails. When I was doing the acrylics, there were so many times where I would get the powder underneath the nail and then have to scrape it off with the brush, but the brush wasn't fully clean, so I would also get some monomer and acrylic on the underside, and I think this will end up affecting the clarity as well. Now, once I finished off the filing, I took a good look at the nails, and I noticed that when I just look at them like folded in front of me, I can see that the sides are not perfectly straight. And this is because even though the bottom of the nail is perfectly straight because I filed it with a hand file, the sides stuck out a bit, right? Because I didn't file the side of the nail. So what I did is I grabbed my e-file and I started like selectively just filing down the sides to try and achieve this like straight line from every angle. Then I got this like really beautiful midnight blue jelly, and I started applying it to the top half of the nails where the cuticle is. I applied one layer and then used a gradient brush to blend it out. And one thing I made sure to do when I was applying this is not swiping the initial layer onto the nail, but rather like patting it on. This is because it has glitter, so if I was to just swipe, the color would lay down onto the nail, but the glitter might still be stuck to the brush. So by patting the product onto the nail, I made sure to get as much glitter as possible. Then I blended out the edge with a gradient brush, cured it, and repeated the process again. And now is the moment of truth. This is when we get to see, is the nail actually clear? Because with clear acrylic, if you overwork it, you start to get these little bubbles. You don't achieve that glossy, clear appearance that you want. So I applied a top coat on the top and bottom of the nails. The reason for this is because I could see that there was monomer on the bottom, and I was hoping that doing this would help improve the clarity and also stop any dirt from getting under the nail as well. And you can see, when you look at it from far away, you do definitely get a glossy effect, but it is not perfect, right? So you can see where the nail is thicker or thinner. You can also see, if you look really closely, tiny little bubbles. And what this means is there was too much liquid. The acrylic was overworked. So next time when I do this, what I'm going to try is just laying down the product, patting it into place, and then leaving it alone. I'm not going to do this thing I did where I was like just constantly brushing it or overworking it. But overall, I do think it turned out cute and it looks good enough, but most of this came from the filing, the 20 minutes or so I had to do. And one of my goals for this series is to get to the point where I could do very minimal filing and just build out the structure properly from the start. Let's go back to the objectives. For the structure, I like that the nail was thick all the way through, but it was definitely poorly built. The apex was way too low down and I ended up having to file so much to get it to look reasonable. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. For the smoothness, 9 out of 10. I spent so much time buffing with multiple sanding grits and I think it came out pretty smooth. It did look clear, especially for a first attempt, but there was still these little specks and I think it could be better. As always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to support the channel, please drop a like, subscribe to the channel and watch this video next.